If any of you have paid any attention to zoos over the last 50 years, you know that years ago, typically animals were in cages like that were quite unhappy with the pace. And there's been quite a bit of advances in how we keep animals in zoos in a more natural environment, so that the environments are built for animals that are so that the environments are like their natural environments. So we've learned quite a bit on how to make tigers, gorillas, panda bears much more happy. But we haven't seemed to have caught on for humans. This would be an office or factory in the 1940s, and this is pretty much what your basic office looks like these days. So what we have here is what's called a mismatch. A mismatch between the environment in which we live and work and the environment in which we evolved. We evolved on the savannas of Africa, and essentially I'm going to talk about three things that are important to humans: sunlight, greenery and natural element, and animals. And if you think about well, Homo sapiens have been around for 180,000 years, and hominoids millions of years before that. Exposure to plenty of sunlight, greenery and natural elements, and then, of course, animals. But now, of course, if you look at your typical office, you don't get any sunlight. Even if you have a corner office and you have a window, you don't get benefits of sunlight. So it turns out now that 1/3 of white males and more females, more minorities, have insufficient levels of vitamin D. And of course, where do you get vitamin D? From the sun. It's really the only good source of vitamin D. And interestingly, all you need is about 3 to 10 minutes of sunlight exposure. I believe it's between 10 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're good to go. But artificial light typically won't do the trick, and certainly windows will not do the trick. Why is vitamin D important? Basically, you really feel bad if you don't get enough vitamin D. Poor bone health, hypertension, cancer, multiple sclerosis, type 1 and type 2 diabetes. You're more prone to infections. And people with insufficient vitamin D are also more prone to depression. You also, in the modern workplaces, you don't see a lot of greenery. I don't know how many of you might have a plant or two, but if not, you just look at this room, no greenery. And also an interesting thing about modern workplaces, the angular design. What we find is that when you have greenery in an office space or in an urban space, you tend to get more improved cognitive functioning, less conflict, and people seem to be happier with more greenery. Just one quick, I'll digress a little bit and tell you about one study. This was done at the University of Michigan, where they had some people walked through Ann Arbor, the city, and other people walked through a park. And then they were randomly assigned to two different conditions. The people that walked through the park, when they gave them tests, had better memory functioning, and they were more creative. And I think if you think about, like, even a lot of retreats that scientists or authors, anybody that does thinking for a living go on, you tend to go to a rural retreat where there's greenery. I'm not sure. Is the internet working on this? These are hyperlinks to. I just went, this is like Google Images, and I think this first one was beautiful. What was the, I can't remember. Let's see, I can't remember what the heading was, but if you look at, let's see, is that, no, that's the right word. Yeah, beautiful views. Is this beautiful views? Yeah.
It's people and animals.
People and animals. Well, okay, let's try the other one then.
Isn't that animals and animals?
No, let's see. Okay, ugly views. Okay, like this, just the search words ugly views. You know, you see it tends to be angular, and usually there's a few here with greenery, but most of them it's not greenery, it's angular, and there's other things as well. But and then if you look at beautiful office views, again just right out of Google Images.
So it,
You might be better off just typing in beautiful views in the search.
Beautiful views. Just beautiful views. What comes up would be you see lots of greenery, nature scenes, water, and there's not much angularity, right? The design is jagged, fractal-like. People who've done studies of the geometry of nature use the term fractals. And you know, this is like totally unscripted. This is just what you'll get when you type in those words. One thing to think about is, why would these kind of pictures come up? Let's see. Oh, is that our preferences are hardwired probably for greenery and fractal type geometry to bring us pleasurable experiences. Now we know what the mechanisms are between the sunlight, vitamin D, and health, but we really don't, as far as I know what the mechanisms are that link greenery and natural elements to positive outcomes. So I don't really know exactly. I don't know if there's much research on that. One might be positive emotions, and the other one might be that the angular environment might be perceived as unfamiliar and threatening, and thereby increasing stress and anxiety. So we did this study where we surveyed 6,000 individuals from the 600 individuals, 300 from the U.S., 300 from India, and just looked at the amount of sunlight they were exposed to and the amount of greenery and natural elements they were exposed to in their workplace. And just real quickly, what we found was that it was actually very powerful results that sunlight exposure related positively to people being more satisfied with their jobs, more committed to their organization, and they were less depressed. Greenery exposure, pretty much the same thing, both in the United States and India. Another interesting thing about greenery and sunlight is that they had buffering effects, which is that if you were experiencing a stressful situation, if you had greenery and natural elements in your environment, or if you had sunlight exposure, the relationship between the stressor and the negative outcomes was less severe. Okay, so there's greenery and sunlight. What about animals? Okay, dogs are natural. Dogs have an interesting history with humans. They were the first domesticated animal. It's unclear exactly when dogs were domesticated. Some people say, well, as early as 15,000 years ago. There's some evidence that says dogs were domesticated maybe 100,000 years ago. And here's a burial site, I think in somewhere in Russia, I believe, where about 12,000 years old, where a person was buried because of their dog. Humans and dogs have this long symbiotic relationship where they were partners and were guardians, companions for millennia. The evolution of dogs, is, of course, I think now is somewhat better understood. Basically what happened was, as humans were hunter-gatherers, they would leave their trash, and the wolves would come by and get it, and then the wolves were more juvenile, more friendly, tended to interact better with the humans, and that's how you got dogs out of wolves. What's unique about dogs is they've adapted to our social nature, and vice versa. This is really fascinating. Dogs are the only animal that will follow human eye movement. So chimpanzees won't, wolves won't, but if you have dogs, you'll notice that if you move your eye, the dog will follow your eye movement. And they have the capability of reading our intentions. So just as humans have a theory of mind, it seems that dogs do as well. And dogs have these features, large eyes, they're juvenile-like, and some people think that what dogs have done is they've co-opted our mechanisms for children. Of course, if you listen to people talking to their dogs, oftentimes they'll talk a baby talk. They treat their dogs like children. And of course, dogs give us unconditional love. Some of there's a lot of research on dogs, not in psychology as much as in the vet literature. But they tend to stimulate interaction with strangers. People who, with dogs, are seen as more friendly and approachable. Women are more likely to give if you're a man, your phone number, if you're with a dog. Some of you probably experienced that. People are more helpful to others when a companion dog is present. Okay. Lower blood pressure. They do a lot of interesting things just interacting with us. So we did this study where there's not a lot of the dogs in the workplace, and so we wanted to think, what effect would dogs possibly have in the workplace, and maybe a stress reducer, more friendly atmosphere. The reason I did this was I would always find that students were more relaxed if they would come into my office and my dog was there, particularly if it was a tense topic like a paper that they got a low grade on or whatnot. So we did this experiment, and we had work groups. Half of the work groups there was a dog present, half of the work groups there was no dog. And then we had videotape, and then we also had people look at the 40-second slices, these random slices of these videotapes, and rate the videotapes on friendliness and whatnot with the dogs cropped out. And basically what we found was that groups that had a dog had greater satisfaction, cohesiveness, cooperation, intimacy, and then people just looking at 40-second slices of these groups with the dog rated these groups as more friendly, cooperative, enthusiastic, attentive, comfortable, and active. So what are some of the implications? Google, of course, lets you bring your dog to work. So does Amazon. Does NYU? The dean's not here, but does he let you bring your dog to the office? Or any of you, working on Wall Street, can you bring your animals to the office? It creates a different atmosphere. And it's not like a sort of a goofy idea. Again, I think it has a lot to do with the human response to animals that has evolved over millennia, particularly with dogs. There's really interesting stuff going on in office architecture in Europe. And this is from a Spanish firm, but if you look at the design of this office, it brings it right into nature. I was talking to a guy about this research from Germany. He said, in fact, in Europe, there's a law now, I think, that when you build an office building, there has to be a certain amount of sunlight and this sort of thing. But you just don't really see much of that in the U.S. Pity. The most happy people on the planet are farmers, forestry workers, and fishermen. And probably one reason for that is they're exposed to greenery, they get plenty of sunlight, and then they're interacting a lot with animals. So that's my talk.
What's the data source on that?
That was done actually by a Office of National Statistics study in the UK.